All right. What is up, everyone? I am so excited for today. I'm your host, Michael McDonald, host of Rocket REI podcast. In 2019, at 26 years old, I quit my full-time corporate job to pursue real estate investing full-time and have never looked back. I'm on a mission to inform and inspire anyone, young and old, to get out of the rat race by bringing on some power players in the real estate space. So excited for today's podcast. Since it's a live podcast, please be sure to ask questions at the end of it. And if you get value from today, make sure to share and tag a friend below. And today I have with me Rick Boyd.
What's up, guys?
Rick is an investor. He's actually based out of Indiana, investing in multiple markets. He's scaling his operation while expanding into virtual markets. Rick, man, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be on here.
For sure. So, let's go ahead and just get the cliche question right out of the way. So for people who don't know you, who are you and how in the heck did you get started and go full-time in real estate?
Great question. So I live in Southern Indiana right now, the markets that we're in, Lexington, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and then part of Southern Indiana as well. But golly, my wife and I, as soon as we got married, been together since middle school, but we got married 5 years ago. And we saw Cody Sperber, Clever Investor. We saw his Instagram ads with the Lamborghinis, man. We saw those and, like a fish take the hook, he hooked us. And the rest is history. So after we got married, we spent our wedding money on a mentorship with, Clever Investor and had a great mentor under that kind of umbrella and slowly failed our way into somewhat a success.
Hey, man, that's all that matters. You took the action and Cody Sperber, that guy is the GOAT.
Yep.
He paved the way for the education space for sure.
That he did.
Cool, man. So how long ago did you actually take that mentorship program and get started?
Yeah, so it was just about 5 years ago we started. And then after the mentorship, we still made a plethora of mistakes and, trials, tribulations throughout the beginning stages of the business. And it took us a long, tumultuous 10 months before we finally closed the deal. But we closed the deal nevertheless. So
there you go.
And it came from zero marketing. It literally came from a Craigslist ad that we were both banging our head against the wall. Why can we not find a deal? We were doing everything completely wrong, maxed out our credit cards, and finally got on Craigslist and found someone and made a whopping $3,500. And we were pumped. So
faith to fact though. That's really all that I think people need to see for their first deal. But so it took you 10 months. Like that's a little while. Did you have any doubts in that 10 months of if this is going to work for you guys?
No, I had no doubts simply due to the fact that, I knew all it took me was to be able to see one person find success in the business. And, once I got into the actual market and the people inside the market that we were in at the time, which was Lexington, Kentucky, when I could see other people doing it, I knew it's only a matter of time before we make this work. I mean, I'm not one that really need proof of concept for my own self. As long as I can see that someone else has done it, I think I'm arrogant enough to think that I can as well. So arrogant in a good way. I got enough ego to tell myself I can do it in a healthy way. So that's all I really needed. Now, my wife, she was still on the fence. She's like, okay, this is a scam. There is no way that you can buy a property with no money and then sell it to someone. And she's like, we need to do 5 deals. Once we can do 5 deals, I'll believe it. And I think after 2 or 3, she was on board. But it was a stressful 10 months. Let me tell you. So.
Hey, man, I totally get that. I had to convince my wife. I did the education, except for it was 6 months for me, and that was even long enough to have her guessing. So
yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. So, it took you 10 months to get it. You had confidence in yourself. You knew it was going to work. But I'm always curious because, everyone, talks about just going out there and making deals happen, but it takes a lot of grit. have you had any success with Craigslist ads since like that first deal? Because I think that's random.
I think it was just God just being like, man, I feel bad for you. Here you go. Because I think I've done one other deal and it was it was a nightmare, but we ended up getting it closed. But in 5 years, we've done 2 deals off Craigslist. So definitely just God being like, you know what, buddy, I feel bad for you right now. So here's a low hanging fruit. So but
Yep.
no, Craigslist is garbage for me.
Yep. I hear you. But that just proof that, you can find a deal pretty much anywhere as long as you're putting out that energy. So
Yep, no doubt.
And then, obviously with, failing forward in this process, did you find that, you had some self-limiting beliefs or any hurdles to overcome? And can you elaborate on maybe if there were, what routines and what helped you to get to a successful state?
Yeah. So as far as limiting beliefs, man, I would love to like give some kind of story saying, yeah, I got all these limiting beliefs, but I'm kind of blessed in a sense where I wasn't, my dad is a successful entrepreneur. All right. However, he was never one to hand me anything. And as a matter of fact, like I live 5,000 miles away from him. So I never really saw him growing up. But I saw what he had accomplished. I didn't have a, super, super close relationship like fathers and sons have, but I could see, I lived in a very blue collar area. My mom, blue collar, but my dad, I could see what he had been able to accomplish. All right. And so I'm like, okay, once again, kind of back to what I told you before, if he can do it, I know I can do it, and so I saw what hard work, I saw what grit, I saw what determination, and I saw what was possible. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of limiting beliefs. And I think a lot of that was just me being so naive of how hard things can be. And so I was just like, yeah, I can make this happen, man. I can do this. And so no real limiting beliefs. Now, I think, to kind of back up, not to talk too much, but I think my biggest struggle, though, there in the beginning was the fact that I think a lot of new guys, they've got like blind optimism in a sense where, just go take action. You hear that nonstop and just go take action. Just do this, just do something. And so, I was spending money that I didn't have. It was on credit cards for failed marketing plans because I was just trying to take action. But it was like blind optimism. My buddy Bo Hollis and we talk about this all the time. And he's, advocate of blind optimism is just, or ignorant optimism is just, it's just a terrible idea. You got to have some sort of inclination of what you need to be doing and not just going out and kind of, I don't know, throwing dirt to the wind. I don't know. So
it's a super good point because so many people, they just go out, okay, if I spend so much money, something's got to stick, right? But if you don't have a goal in mind or a target and a plan to get there, you're kind of just going in circles.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Cool, man. So speaking of just throwing marketing dollars and stuff like that,
yeah.
When we talked last week, I told you I was gonna bring this up here. Hope you don't mind. But like, it's great to see people winning, but I want to show people that like it's not all rainbows and unicorns. This business is tough, even for somebody like you or for myself. We kind of feel like we have it figured out, but some days we don't. So can you talk about kind of your experience at the end of last year, man, like going into this year and what happened?
Yeah, 100%. So I had tried to scale up my business. So at the time we were doing one, ish deals a month. And this was, I guess, 2 years ago. We were doing, consistent 1 to 2 deals a month. And at that point, I'm like, all right, we have money coming in. I had quit my job and I'm like, all right, well, the next thing to do is hire people. And that's what's going to get me to the next level. And once again, this might have been some blind optimism. I didn't necessarily hire the right people. And I guess I have to backtrack a little bit. So I had a job and I had a really good job, and it's a very big company and they have great systems. They have great processes in place. And so I was a sales manager, had 20 to 25 people reporting to me. And as a leader, I was really leading off of my personality, and I would get people to go to bat for me. They wanted to go to war, they wanted to go sell. And then when I stepped out, I branched out, did my own thing. I realized slower than I should have, that, I can't create and scale a company based on my personality. I have to have the correct systems and processes. And so I had scaled up real quick to, 3 acquisitions guys, plus my wife and I, so 5 people total, trying to lead and build that company based on emotion and based on personality. And I found out real quick that if you don't have the correct systems and processes, well, man, you're destined to fail. And so we were doing more deals. I don't feel like I was putting a whole lot of money in my pocket because it was just kind of going out the back door. And even though I had hired people, I felt like I was still kind of doing their job, and it just wasn't working correctly. So now, to take some accountability or take some responsibility, I guess, a lot of that was my fault, because once again, I just didn't have the correct systems and processes in place to set someone up for success. Nor do I think I had the right people. So it was a big combination of both, and a big bright light, like deer in the headlights. Okay, something's got to change real quick, or else I'm going to be screwed. So.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. So I think where a lot of people get caught up is just never really letting go of the mind. So kudos to you, though, for actually making those hires, because, I'm kind of in my business right now, struggling to really let go of all those additional tasks. I've got VAs and stuff like that, but for you, so you hired them, it didn't work out, and then you kind of reset. I'm assuming you got some systems and processes really nailed down before you decided to go that route again.
Yeah. So not to give too big of a plug, but my brother, Joe Dillon, he's my current business coach, and he really just it was an enlightening moment seeing his business, how he was, able to scale up super, super high, multiple millions of dollars a year, and netting millions of dollars a year. And so, when he kind of showed me the way, I was really able to see what I was doing wrong. And it was definitely a humbling moment. But yeah, definitely a humbling moment. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question there or not.
You did. Does Joe have experience in real estate, or did you love that he had so much experience with building businesses, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, it was wholesaling specific. So he had scaled up a business, really kind of separated himself from the business. It was very much like, visionary type work. And that's exactly what I love. Sales. I love the chase of, running after a deal, but I don't want to do that forever, And so that was kind of my issue. Like, hey, I'm stuck right now, from a gross standpoint. My business has made more money than, most people I know, but I'm not, I'm still doing everything, and I don't know where this money's going, So I had no sense of profitability. I had no sense of real ROI. It was just,
it's kind of the hamster wheel. You just make as much money as you can just to make sure that you're going to be in business and not have to go back to that job.
Yeah.
And until you finally just realize, okay, I have so much money in the pipes that I have to figure out how I can get myself out of this business and actually run it like a business.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. High paying job. Totally is what I had.
Oh yeah. I think it happens to the best of us. But so since you hired Joe, and since you've kind of grown, into more structure there, what's your business look like now?
Yeah. So so backtrack once again. I hired Joe. We kind of parted ways with majority of all of our team. And so then it was kind of back to just my wife and I. I never once, took a dollar away from the amount of marketing we were spending on a monthly basis or anything like that. And, I figured if I was basically doing a lot of this myself in the first place, well, I'm just going to put myself back in that seat. And so deals didn't. Then COVID hit, first and foremost. Then COVID hit, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm definitely not hiring anyone. I don't know what next week's going to bring, let alone, this year. And so I wasn't about to hire anyone. Turned out COVID wasn't that bad for this sector of business. I mean, things didn't really slow down for me per se. Once again, never took a dollar away from marketing, just kind of got back into the business and grinded. Now I did, with Joe, I took a lot of time ironing out, right systems, not hiring just anyone, but finding the right person, not necessarily the person I liked, but the person that fit best for the jobs that I needed completed. And thank God I got a freaking perfect person. And that was an acquisitions person. I realized I don't mind dispositions. I love acquisitions, but it's just so time consuming. I needed a stud in that position. And so I hired someone who has the right idea to scale into more of a sales manager role, to where he can really take on some day-to-day once we hire another person. And so he's been an absolute rock star, a blessing to our business. And now I'm really just doing dispositions at this point. I don't talk to sellers. Just doing dispositions. My wife takes care of all the transaction coordinating, and we'll hire a couple more people, maybe another one by the end of the year, and then by early next year have ideally another team of just 5-6 people. But I don't have any sort of aspirations of having this big team. I just want a smaller, very lean team where I just make high level decisions, and then I can take my money and go do something else.
And you keep more money too, right?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Sweet, man. That's amazing. So your acquisitions person you hired is crushing it. Didn't you say you had like 7 contracts last time we talked, like a couple weeks ago?
So his first 30 days, he put 7 deals under contract. Yeah, it's been crazy. So a lot of that, once again, kind of goes back to when I was sitting in the acquisition role and not necessarily being able to allocate as much time as I needed. There was a lot of leads in there that were just not tended to. So it was an unhealthy position that needed fixed, and he's done a great job. So
that's incredible. So, as we mentioned in the beginning, you are in Indiana, and your main market is Kentucky, right?
Yeah, that's our main market, Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky. Now, recently we've been doing a lot in Southern Indiana, but still, to your point, it's been virtual. We're not going to look at houses or anything like that.
Cool. So, I think a lot of people hear this virtual thing, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a trendy thing right now. So how in the world are you able to do this business and not live in that same market?
Yeah. So
like how does that work? Like, for somebody who doesn't know the process, like, if you don't mind breaking it down a little bit.
Sure. So, let's say a lead comes into our system. All right. After having seen several thousands of houses over the last 5 years, I know what a roof's going to cost. I know what windows are going to cost. I can see, just based on Zillow, go look at Zillow. I can see what homes are selling for in the neighborhood that are similar. I know what all this stuff is going to cost. And so any person that has gone to look at a property that's in wholesaling, that's in real estate, you've gone on a seller appointment. All right. You know what you say when you're on a seller appointment. We're saying the same exact stuff over the phone. And the biggest, that's totally just a mental block that people kind of deal with. You can do it over the phone. There's no need to go and see the house. I do some mentoring and, for newer people, and I do tell them in the beginning, go look at houses and stuff like that. But after you've done it a few times, it's not a necessity. We tell the biggest thing you'll get from a seller is, how are you able to make an offer over the phone without having seen my property? Well, Mrs. Jones, as long as you're being forthright with me and telling me everything that the house needs, then I know everything. I know what a roof's going to cost. I know what windows are going to cost. Sounds like I'm going to have to update that kitchen, Mrs. Jones. So all that stuff it's common knowledge to us. And as long as you have that confidence in your voice and you're portraying it to the seller, they go right on in a line.
It's incredible, man. So it's just the amount of time that you save, the efficiency with being virtual, and the amount of extra deals that you're able to do from not running around. And it's a game changer. Everyone needs to virtually wholesale real estate, in my opinion. But the less people that do it, the better off we're going to be. So,
yep.
But at the end of the
Go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's fantastic because it's awesome. I didn't realize you were helping other people out too. That's super awesome. Everyone needs to wholesale real estate.
I agree. And that was not an attempt to plug. So don't reach out to me if you're looking for mentors.
Yeah. No.
Select people.
For sure. So, what would you say to somebody who may be just getting started? Maybe they're 5 months in, maybe they're, whatever, and they haven't had any success. Like, any advice, like in particularly, that you would give to them to kind of help them break through?
You got to get creative, honestly. So I'm gonna brag on my wife for a minute. When we first got started, as I said, it took us a long time before we were able to do a first deal, and we had maxed out our credit cards. My wife was literally doing like dog sitting, like advertising. There you go, on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. Hey, we'll watch dogs, and that was literally our marketing money because I had a good job, but we were maxed out on credit cards. We had a lot of bills, and basically every bit of money we had went straight to bills and trying to pay off debt. And so we were doing dog sitting. My wife was posting in the local RIA groups. Hey, we'll paint your house. We'll paint your apartment complexes. And she was just undercutting everyone's price like substantially. Terrible deal for us, but that was our marketing money. That's all we could do. Now to that point, we did get creative from a financial sense, but we also went to the best wholesaler in that market and was like, hey, I'll paint your house for free. He also bought rentals, and he had one that he was needing painted. And she went to him and she's like, hey, if I can just, if you buy the paint and I'm allowed to just pick your brain for a little bit, I'll paint the house for free. And so she went, and that's what she did. Now, Alan, if he ever watches this, Alan is a great, great friend of mine, but he is Irish. Like, he's Irish, thick accent. And she's like, she comes home that night. She's like, babe, I have no idea what he told me. I couldn't understand him. And so, funny, Alan and I are great friends, but he was a big help, and that was something where if you're in any sort of local RIA groups, you see that kind of stuff all the time where new investors are like, I need help. But they're really, they say give value first, but I don't think people understand the idea of truly giving value. It's not, hey, if I can ever help you, let me know.
You literally painted somebody's house for the value. That's insane. You bartered. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. And that immediately, we had met for coffee after the fact. I got to meet him and actually talk to him. And, when we first talked to him, before any of that, he's like, we were looking to JV on a deal. And he said, I don't JV with new wholesalers, and so it was like, but we had, keep going back. We heard no one time. Eventually someone's going to tell us yes. And eventually he did. So
sounds like persistence here.
You got it, man. That's all it takes. Yeah. That's all it takes.
Yeah. I just don't, I just don't think a lot of people quite understand how much persistence and how much rejection this business really takes, because who wants to sell their house for pennies on the dollar? Like, who does?
Yeah.
Very few people.
Yeah.
But they're out there. So
they are 100% out there.
Speaking of which, how in the heck do you find them? Like, obviously, you have certain things of marketing. You don't have to tell me all your trade secrets, but what are some of your top marketing strategies?
Yeah, so cold calling and SMS. I mean, that's been our big ones. We've got a group of cold callers. They basically take care of every bit of the cold calling. All right, so they call everything. We get big data sets. We get the small niche lists. We get everything. And I think, once again, to your point, a couple minutes ago, it's all about consistency. I don't think it really matters what marketing technique you do, as long as you're consistent with it. Some months you're going to do more deals, and other months you might do one deal, but it all evens out as long as you stay consistent with the marketing. If you're cold calling, if you're texting, RVMs, if you're sending direct mail, if you're doing SEO, if you are consistently spending the money in marketing, it will pan out.
Nice. That's good stuff. So are your cold callers, are those in-house? Are they like Filipino cold callers, or tell me about that?
Yeah, so they are. I actually outsourced it. Here's another plug. I outsourced it to a company called Distinct Buy. All right. And they are Adam and Caleb, great group of guys. I had gone down both of those paths. I had virtual assistants. I had in-house cold callers, and neither one of them, it was just too big of a headache. Excuse me. And so, when we're going through the stages of kind of restructuring our business, it was just, even if I meant I had to spend a little bit more money, which it is a little bit more money than just going out and finding, more VAs.
Yeah.
If it meant it was one less thing I had to worry about. And they are a group of great guys. I'm allowed to listen to any of the calls that the VAs do. I can do any of that stuff. And so I felt like if I wasn't getting the return that I wanted, I still had the ability to go in and listen to these calls and say, okay, this is why.
Yep.
But that's not been the case. They've been awesome. And so it was one less thing I had to worry about, and they have been rock stars for me.
That's key. So are those guys, are they based in the US or where are they out of?
I know they're not all of their callers are based in the US, but they are. They're in Vegas, I believe.
That's what I thought. The name sounded familiar. That's where I live. So that I've came across them before. I'll have to check them out.
Yep.
So that's great, man. So it pretty much you pass off your list to them, and then they just call and they just send you the leads only.
Yeah. So they're they're employees. They're doing all the cold calling, and anytime that there's a lead, it goes directly into my CRM. It's got the campaign or the list, if you will, that they're actually calling. They've got several different going on at one time. And so it's all tracked in my CRM. It immediately goes in there. I can see, okay, this came from this list. This came from that list. And from there, my acquisitions guy just sits there and calls away.
That's awesome. So there's a lot to be said about not having to babysit and manage the VAs and your callers.
Yep.
It takes up a lot of time. So
it definitely does. It definitely does. So
nice, man. So I always like to deep dive a deal that you have going on. So you do a lot of wholesaling, but I noticed that you have a flip going on. We don't have to talk about that one, but can you tell me about maybe a deal? Talk about some numbers and revenue and how it's going.
I will actually tell you about the flip. All right, because it's kind of a unique situation. We had wholesaled a deal virtually. In a neighboring, it's a little ways away. And next door to it, there was a vacant property, tried skip tracing it, finding them, could not find them to save my life. All right. Could not find it anywhere. So, driving around where we currently live, which we don't do deals where we live. We live in a very small town, and, driving down the road, I found a vacant property. All right. I'm like, I'll just try and call them. Well, I couldn't find them either, but I found the name. And so I got on Facebook and just randomly shot some messages to, I think, 3 or 4 different people that had that name. And one of them messaged me back. And they're like, yeah, my brother's actually taking care of this. My dad died and we've inherited the property. All right. So I call this guy. She gives me the number. I call this guy. He's like, I'm actually down in New Albany. He's like, you want to meet me down here and talk real quick? Because I'm like, yeah, sure. I kind of want to know what's going on. So I meet him at that vacant property in a different town that we had wholesaled the house next door to. So he owns that one and this house a mile down the road from my personal residence. And so it was just it was awesome. So we ended up locking both of them up. We wholesaled the deal in a couple towns away. It was a good deal. I think we made 17, 18 grand on it.
Woo!
And then we ended up buying the property for ourselves here in our hometown. Now, I had originally locked this deal up for $115,000. It's sits on an acre. Once again, this is a small, rural town, and locked it up for 115. And I'm like, you know what? My wife's dying to flip this house. She's like, I want this. I'm like, all right, what?
I feel some emotions coming in here.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, let's try it. So we figured, you know what? Let's go ahead and have an inspection done on it. We have the time. We're not in a rush to close. Let's have an inspection. So the inspection comes back horrid. Foundation, not good. Everything needs replaced. We had planned on just doing, when you walk in, it did not look like a bad house. All right. It looked A-okay. And so repairs were just crazy with this. We had planned on buying it for 115, putting 5 or 10 into it, selling it for 160, and being in and out in like 2 weeks. So the inspection comes back, needs way more work. So I renegotiate with the guy. I get him to drop 25,000. We end up locking it up for 90 at that point. And we talked to my sister-in-law. She's a realtor as well. And we're like, listen, if we do this, what do you think we could get? She's like, well, if you did all that stuff, I think you could get 210 for it. I'm like, oh, golly. All right. So we borrowed a lot, and yeah, we're just going kind of all out on it. So everything is new on the property, and we'll almost be done. I think we'll be in it for 40 in repairs, and we're going to try and sell it for 210. So it should be a good deal.
So you'll be into it for 130, and you're going to try to capitalize at 210.
That's the plan. We'll see. We'll see.
Keep me posted on that one. I want to know.
I will.
That's awesome. Good stuff, man. Well, hey, I respect your time, and I don't want to keep you too long, but I do always ask my guests, what is a book that you'd recommend? Doesn't have to be real estate, but just that you recommend.
Yeah. So listen, I'm a Christian. I think the Bible has got to be probably at the pinnacle of any book. Me personally, maybe it's not for some people. Honestly, I think if you're trying to scale a business, I think there's a few books, and this is where kind of I'm at in my life, or in my business life, so to speak. But I think Traction is an incredible book. I think Rocket Fuel is an incredible book. And then, before you read either of those, I think you got to read the E-Myth. I think all three of those books are just very eye-opening. They're also very humbling. If you are high and mighty on yourself, it will definitely, as a business owner, it will definitely tear you down and make you feel like a piece of crap. And I think that's good. So I think we all need a little bit of dose of reality. And I think those are three stellar books for anyone trying to grow a business.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I've read all of them. So
yeah.
Nice. All right. One last piece of advice that you'd like to leave listeners with.
Oh man, the list could go on and on and on. I think the biggest thing for me, and this might not even be real estate, it's not real estate specific, but I think you have to have humility. And I don't mean that in like a cliche way, like, oh, you got to be humble. But I think you have to have the humility to sit back and tell yourself, or have that serious conversation with yourself, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in your business, in a friendship, whatever the case is. Listen, what am I doing wrong? All right. It's not everyone else's fault. It might not be my marketing, or it might not be, the seller's fault. Have that tough conversation. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself what it is that you could be doing different to have more success. I think in this business, if you buy properties, a lot of times you deal with, maybe crappy tenants, maybe crappy homeowners. Sometimes these people, they're in a position for a reason. They've put themselves in this position, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But everything is everyone else's fault. And I think that's something that really drives me crazy. So whether you're struggling in this business, once again, struggling in a relationship, look yourself in the mirror and ask what you're doing wrong. And if you can fix those problems, if life doesn't get better, then I don't know, man. I got nothing.
That's great advice, man. So out with the victim mentality, in with just taking full responsibility for everything you have going on. So that's awesome.
I would say you're spot on. Yep.
Beautiful, man. All right, Rick. Well, that is all for now. We're going to have to get back on here next year or something like that when you're completely scaled up and fully crushing it. Not that you're not ready, but
sounds good, man. I look forward to it. I thank you so much for having me on. It's honestly been great talking to you. I liked connecting with you the first time. So been great talking.
Good stuff, man. All right. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, man.